Hey guys, so with the nutrition challenge coming to an end, I wanted to take this tip to kind of go over some tips on how you can continue to count macronutrients. So if you find that you liked this way of tracking food and you want to continue it, here are some ways that you can kind of just really hone in on being super accurate if you want to get a little bit more precise with your calculating. But other than that, yeah, take these tips into your routine. Hopefully they're helpful. If you have more questions, you can comment below. But yeah, let's get started. So a lot of people that use macronutrient diet are athletes or maybe bodybuilders. But again, maybe you're not competing in anything, or maybe you're just working out and you want to get super precise with your diet for enhanced weight loss, or maybe you want to bulk up and you want to put on some muscle mass and you're calculating macros. Probably the most precise way to do this is to take everything that you eat into account when you're calculating. So even if that means that you're having a drink with 10 grams of sugar in the entire bottle, calculate that into your macronutrients. Same thing with dressings, any sort of sauces that you cook your food in, you want to calculate into your macronutrients as well. The best way to calculate stuff, so if you're going by weight, buy a scale. So I have a scale here. It's just a really accurate way to do that. So you can adjust the units, so it calculates grams, pounds, ounces. Some of them are super precise and they have more settings, but grams, pounds, and ounces are probably the three main ones that you want to have in your scale. So this one is loading, loading, loading. So if I place it down, I'm going to flip this guy around so you guys can see. So here is the scale, and right now it's reading ounces. So ounces are right here. And then you can change the units to grams. Some of them have kilograms. Some of them have pounds and ounces. But those are the three ones that you want to have, are grams, ounces, and maybe pounds. So say I take my weighing bowl and I place it on my scale. That's going to take into account the weight for the bowl. So I'm going to zero or tare it to zero, and then I'm going to add my food in. So I'm just going to use some already roasted potatoes and vegetables that I cooked the other day, and I'm going to weigh them in my bowl. So when you're weighing something that's already cooked, the way I would do it is I would think, okay, there's potatoes in here, there's roasted red peppers, there's some onions, and there's some mushrooms. But the thing that has probably the most calorically dense calories in here are the potatoes. So I'm going to take those into major consideration when I'm weighing out my roasted potato medley. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to weigh out, let's go into grams here. And I have my bowl on the scale. And I'm just going to take my roasted potato medley. And I'm going to weigh out, let's do 200 grams. So I'm obviously getting some roasted red peppers in here, some onions and some mushrooms with my potatoes. But I'm going to weigh out 200 grams. And say I want to eat these with my eggs or my steak or something. So let's see. 200. Okay, so 204 grams. So I'm going to take the macronutrients of the potatoes mainly in this medley because they're the most caloric dense. So one way you can do that is if you buy a potato bag, they might have the macronutrients on the potato bag. If you don't, you can always Google it, or in this case, I have an Alexa. So she will tell me the macronutrients of my roasted red potatoes. So I'm going to ask Alexa how many grams of carbohydrates, proteins, and fat are in my roasted potatoes. So how many carbohydrates are in 200 grams of roasted red potatoes?
200 grams of roasted potatoes has 40 grams of carbohydrates.
There. So obviously they'll have a little bit of protein in them, not a ton, but mostly carbohydrates. And she said 40 grams of carbohydrates, I think. Alexa, how many grams of protein are in 200 grams of red potatoes?
200 grams of red potatoes has 4 grams of protein.
Okay, so it's not much. You can either choose to incorporate that into your macronutrients or not. If you're being super precise, you're going to want to. So anyways, so I asked Alexa, that's one way you can do it. Instead of going to the web, if you want to use Alexa, you can use Alexa. If you need to, Google it, but you can always find the macronutrients in food on the web. So I'm going to carbs, protein, and fat. So she said 40 carbs, 4 grams of protein, and then there'll be a little bit of fat. I sprayed mine with some oil, so I might put maybe 3 grams of fat just to be safe. So now that I have the macronutrients for my potatoes, and again, keep in mind that this is a medley that has mainly carbohydrates in it. So say this medley were to have chicken already mixed in it, it'd be a little bit harder to calculate. If you wanted to be precise, you could separate the protein from the rest of it. So say I had my medley with chicken randomly spread out in there. I would separate the chicken from the potatoes and the vegetables, and I would weigh them separately and calculate them separately. Since it's just potatoes and vegetables, I'm going to, now that I've weighed out my 200 grams of potatoes, I'm now going to weigh out my protein. So I have baked chicken, and I'm going to grab my bowl. I'm going to tear my scale with the bowl already on it, and I'm going to weigh out in ounces my chicken. So 8 ounces of chicken breast has about 50 grams of protein, somewhere around maybe 10 grams of fat, depending on how lean it is. So I'm going to measure out, so that's 5.5 ounces of chicken. So now I'm going to ask Alexa how many grams of protein and fat are in my chicken breast. Alexa, how many grams of protein are in 5.5 ounces of chicken breast?
5.5 ounces of chicken breast has 47 grams of protein.
Now I'm going to ask her how much fat. Alexa, how many grams of fat are in 5.5 ounces of chicken breast?
5.5 ounces of chicken breast has 3.2 grams of fat.
So that's way lower than I thought. I thought originally maybe 10, no more than that, but it's 3.5, I think she said. So now I'm going to show you what I have calculated for my entire meal. So what I have here is I have the macronutrients for my potatoes, so 40 grams of carbs from the potatoes, and then 4 grams of protein, and about 3 grams of fat. And then this is my chicken. So now all I'm going to do to calculate my meal is to add these up. So I have 6.5 grams of fat, I have 51 grams of protein, and I have 40 grams of carbohydrates. So 50 grams of protein in one meal, I'd say that's the most you ever want to go on protein in a meal. Otherwise, your body probably won't digest all of it. So that was a breakdown of how to calculate things that are already cooked. And then obviously, again, if things are mixed in with one another already, so if I were to have already mixed in the chicken with my protein or my potato medley, that'd be a lot harder to calculate. So since it was separated, it made it a lot easier to calculate my macros more efficiently. So if you can, always cook things separate and then add them together at the end. That's the way I would do it. Now, say hypothetically speaking, I'd want to also make a salad to eat with my potatoes and my chicken with dressing. I would want to either go to Google, or if you have the nutrition facts of your produce already, like carbs, protein, there's probably not going to be any fat in vegetables, mostly carbohydrates. But if you're adding dressing, that's going to add fat to your salad. So you want to take that into consideration and use the nutrition facts on the back of the dressing label to calculate how much you use. So typically dressings will use tablespoons. So you want to measure out your tablespoons of dressing and then add the macronutrients of that into your calculating. So you'll calculate if you're using 2 tablespoons and a serving is 2 tablespoons, you'll take that serving and you'll add it, like I did on my sheet here, you'll add that into it. Now, say if you're using avocados, so avocados are obviously fat and carbohydrates. There's going to have a lot of fat in avocado, so keep that in mind. So again, go to the web, maybe if you're using half an avocado, or if you want to get super precise, you can weigh out in grams or ounces. I'd go grams for avocados. Weigh out the grams of avocado you're using, put it in your salad, and then ask the internet or Alexa how many grams of fat and carbohydrates are in, let's say maybe we use 50 grams of avocados. I don't know how much that is, but say you use that much, you're going to add it to your totals. And that's how you'd calculate things that maybe you don't have nutrition labels for. Now that I have showed you guys how to calculate things that don't have nutrition labels, where we can't calculate our macros nutrition label, we go to the internet and we use a scale to weigh everything out. Now I'm going to show you how to calculate things using the nutrition labels. So for this example, I'm going to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on a plain bagel. All right, you guys. So I have my bagels here, and I'm going to take one bagel out, and I'm going to look at the nutrition facts on the back of the bagel. And I don't even need to weigh this because it's going to tell you one bagel has 1.5 grams of fat. It also has 55 grams of carbohydrates with 2 grams of fiber if you are taking the fiber out of the carbohydrates. So you can subtract fiber from carbohydrates. I typically don't, but you can. If you do, just make sure you always do that. So stay consistent with that calculating if you're doing that. And then 10 grams of protein in one bagel. So now that I have my bagel calculated, I'm going to go over to my peanut butter, and I'm going to look at the nutrition facts on my peanut butter. So I'm just using Nature's Promise. So 32 grams or 2 tablespoons of peanut butter has 16 grams of fat, has 8 grams of protein, and it has 7 grams of carbohydrates. So now I'm going to use my scale to weigh out 32 grams on my bagel. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to turn my scale on with my plate and my bagel already on it. And then it should tare with it on it already. I'm going to change the grams, units to grams. And I'm going to scoop out 32 grams of peanut butter. And I'm going to spread it on my bagel. Yum, yum, yum. So I'm going to weigh that, put it back on there. So I'm at 18 grams. You can cut it in half. So if you only wanted to do probably half that, you'd stop there. If you want to do the full 2 servings, spread it on. 32 grams of peanut butter. 28. Let's go the full 32 because peanut butter is delicious. 32, perfect. So now that I have my peanut butter on there, I'm going to take the other half of my sandwich and I'm going to put, let's see, 19 grams of jelly, which is 1 tablespoon, has 10 grams of carbohydrates, which is 10 grams of sugar. So I'm going to take my knife and I'm probably only going to use 1 serving of jelly. Oops. I did a big no-no. So make sure you tare your jelly before you put it back on. So I'm going to tear it back to 0. So I scraped the jelly off my bagel. And now I'm going to go back in and I'm going to add 19 grams of jelly onto my bagel. If I double that, just make sure you calculate double the macros on your sheet. Okay, so 26. So that's probably like 1.5 servings. So I'll probably calculate, what was it, 9 grams, 10 grams? I'll probably calculate 15 grams of carbohydrates from my jelly. Now I'm going to show you what I have on my sheet for calculating so we can do the totals. So don't mind me, I spilled some peanut butter on my sheet here. So we have our, carbs, protein, and fat. So that is from the bagel. And then this is from the peanut butter. And then this was the jelly. Obviously, there's no protein and no fat in jelly because it's mostly sugar anyways. So if I total that out, 17.5. And then we have 18 grams of protein. And then 55 carbs plus 15, that's 70 plus another 7 is 77. So 77 grams of carbs, 18 grams of protein, and 17.5 grams of fat in my peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So that is a very precise way of how to calculate your macronutrients with things that have nutrition labels on them. So it's a lot easier. All you have to do is weigh out or measure out, whether you're using a scale or tablespoons, to measure out your protein or your peanut butter and your jelly, and then calculate on a sheet of paper. If you're using an app like MyFitnessPal, it probably will already do that for you. You just have to add in the serving sizes. But this is how you would do it to be super precise, and to also do it by hand if you don't have access to a smartphone. That's how you would do it on here. So any questions you have, drop in the comments below. If you liked this video and you want to see me do more of them, let me know, and then comment some things that maybe like your favorite meal. So maybe if you're doing like pasta salad, then obviously it has carbohydrates in there. It has fat from, if you're using dressing or mayonnaise. It's going to be a lot harder to calculate if you're doing that. So let me know in the comments below if that's something that you're interested in learning how to do. I will help you guys out with that. Have a good day. Bye.